I am.
Oh, we're recording. Hi guys, today I am so fortunate and blessed to have Ani Lippitz with me today. I got to know her through Facebook and I fell in love with her when she made one specific video that we'll talk about, hopefully, about cuffing and pain. And I was like, I love this girl.
There was one specific term that we bonded over.
Yes. Because there's no other way to capture that concept.
Yeah.
I just want to read your bio so everybody can get to know exactly who you are and what you're about. Ani Lippitz is a teacher, speaker, healing practitioner, and a writer. Her passion and purpose is helping others deeply understand, access, and live Geula, personal and collective redemption. That's what that means. I want to talk today, and we make sure we translate for our audience who might not be Jewish. I want everyone to understand these concepts.
1,000,000%.
Ani runs Geula Vision, a website full of classes on transformative Jewish mysticism, is a principal of a brand new high school, Heichal Devora, and women's-based madrasa, and is the author of the Tanya Companion, which I have right next to me.
There it is.
There it is. Hopefully you'll print more of those.
God willing.
Yes. Her other interests include equestrian, psychoneuroimmunology, a very fancy way of saying mind-body connection, graphic design, and filmmaking. Ooh, that's so good. That's such a great combination.
That's what I studied in college, actually.
Oh, because you can make videos.
Yeah.
Ani lives in New York, like me, with her husband, 4 kids, Kananahara, and her horse, Sender. So we were just talking before we started recording that today there's so much I could pick your brain about. You're just a wealth of information about this process that we're in right now. You were born for this time and living in your purpose, which is huge. So congratulations on that.
Thank God.
But I want to merge the concepts in the secular world of the Great Awakening with Geula, which is the same thing. Right? Would you say it's the same thing?
We're describing the same thing, just with different semantics.
Right, different wording.
Wording. And if we can plug in the semantics from the source code of reality, aka Hasidus, which is an essential stream of Jewish mysticism, then we can, I think, streamline the process when we're plugging, because words are energy. Words, especially Hebrew words, are actually direct connections to the energetic thing itself. In Hebrew, the word for word is davar, which also means a thing, an object.
Right.
So the more
words are things.
Yes. So the more we can merge these things, these words, this terminology, I think the more we're just bringing the light to everybody, and the more we can just wake up and make the process go faster, and maybe even quantum leap over a lot of the process, because what's behind it is ultimately God revealing himself to us. So if we can maybe skip over some of that process or transmute some of that process by getting our Geula vision, our redemptive vision, more sharply focused, and we can kind of tune in just to trying to just see God and what he's doing, I think we can just streamline the whole thing.
Right. We can make it, all of us want the same thing, to bring it in faster, to bring paradise back to earth.
Yeah.
I want to understand what the matrix is in Hasidic terms, if you could go there.
So, well, first, let me know exactly what you mean by the matrix, because I think a lot of people use that term. I know recently you've said that it's like the trauma bond to fear-based systems.
Very good.
Which I think is a tremendous way of describing it. So is that what you're meaning when you say
it wasn't mine? I read that on Facebook. Yeah, I can't claim that as mine, but it was the first thing that made psychological sense to me, that it's not a place, it's a state of mind.
Correct. And so to me, that idea of the matrix as far as a trauma bond to fear-based systems would be what I describe as GILA'S, as exile, as cosmic exile. So when a lot of people hear this term exile, maybe in a historical or a cultural sense, the first thing you would think of, especially as for the Jews in the audience or people familiar with this history, is, the Jews being exiled from the land of Israel. But Gullus, or exile, is a cosmic experience. It's a collective experience, and it happened as soon as Adam and Eve ate from the tree in the Garden of Eden. that was a space of consciousness, by the way. That was a place of energy, of godly revelation. And what happened when they ate was that all of a sudden they went from unity conscious to a consciousness of toiv v'ra, good and evil. What does that mean? We split into binary consciousness. So we were exiled from the experience of unity, of everything being one, of all of the being able to plug experientially into the common essence of every unique expression of God in the world. So to me, being in the matrix means still being in this exile consciousness, this duality, fractured, binary, and more than fear, it's shame driven. Because the first thing that Adam and Chava, that humanity experienced that embedded itself so deeply in our DNA was shame. All of a sudden they were outside of their experience. All of a sudden it said, they looked and they realized they were naked. Before that, they were just one with themselves and their experience and with God. And all of a sudden they had this awareness, this dual awareness of themselves and their experience, and they realized they were naked and they felt shame. And all of a sudden God's presence was seeking them out, and they were afraid. They wanted to hide because of their shame. So almost more than it being a fear-based, a trauma bond to fear-based systems, that's more of almost maybe a trauma bond to shame-based systems. And that's the exile experience. So being in the matrix is this kind of trauma bond with this essential sense of shame, I think.
So is that the rectification of that to heal all the shame within ourselves? Like, is that how we can do the work of?
Yeah. And the essential shame that tells me that the etzem, in essence, I'm wrong, there's something wrong with me, that's what we have to heal. Because there are other flavors of shame that are useful, that can tell us I've violated a boundary. I've violated a code of my soul, so to speak. But when shame, as it has been so deeply in this generation, when shame is weaponized and I feel shame for freaking everything, I can't hear the GPS of my soul anymore telling me, wow, you've actually veered off your path. You veered out of your integrity, because I'm constantly feeling shame for everything. I actually lose touch with my soul when it's sending me those little signals. And healthy shame, I liken to, the lane detection warning system in your car.
Yes.
So basically what happens, I'm coming into oncoming traffic, beep, beep, beep. I correct my course. It stops beeping at me. It doesn't keep beeping going, you're such an idiot. Oh my God, how would you do that? And it's not beeping when I'm actually on course. So like healthy shame, like the shame that's actually a gift from God and from our soul, is a shame that would tell me you're going off course of your soul and of godliness. But again, if that alarm is always going off, it's disrupted my ability to get those signals.
Right.
I just want to acknowledge that I see that my tongue is yellow because I'm drinking turmeric juice, like stuff with turmeric in it. So nobody think I'm like ill or weird.
It's so healthy. That's so good for you.
Yeah.
I wanted to go back to the Garden of Eden and understand from your perspective, what happened with the snake? Is that where there's concept in the secular world that our DNA was messed with by the snake, that the snake might have slept with Eve? What are your thoughts on that?
So I just want to first preface by saying these thoughts are not my thoughts. This comes straight from the esoteric, the hidden dimensions of Torah. This is all Kabbalah and Hasidus. So my understanding is that it is possible. It's actually possible that because all of this happened literally, right? This is all literally real. It played out in energetic dimensions and also, in the context of the world that we also inhabit now. So there is the concept that that Chava, Eve there was some type of merging, whether it was literal physical intercourse or more of a psychic merging that then affected I would say, energetic DNA that then got passed on. That's a very real concept in Kabbalah. That it's called the zuhama of the snake, the impurity, or the impurity of the snake. Essentially, that snake energy that was then passed through the offspring, right. And so that is, according to Jewish mysticism, a very real concept. And I know Rabbi Alona Nava has given classes on this and spoken about the idea that Adam and Eve's children, there's a reference in the Zohar to them looking like reptiles or looking reptilian. So it's a very real concept. Yeah.
So there's the thought also that I've heard that they say 98% of our DNA is junk DNA.
Mm-hmm.
But really it's that there's more strands of our DNA that's been manipulated by, can we talk about galactics? Can we talk about other off-world things? Because that's the storyline that really resonates with me right now, that we have been dumbed down on this planet. And there has been, you know, infiltration, manipulation with our DNA. And it could have started back in the garden. I think it did. And that's the origin of where we, you know, went off, where we had to, you know, all the negative vibrations came into the planet. So are you of that theory that as we go into Yemos HaMashiach, as we go into the redemption, will more of our DNA come online? Do you know anything about that?
I think that probably has a lot to do with, we talk about our, the fact that our bodies will become inherently eternal again.
Right.
Like God's vision for mankind, the original design, and it wasn't an accident. The fall wasn't an accident. Nothing that has played out throughout history was any type of accident. It's all been part of a divine plan to experience negativity. And it says all of our souls consented to this. God asked, should we have this adventure? And we all said, hell yeah. And now I'm thinking back to that aspect of my soul that agreed to this. I'm like, what the hell were you even thinking? Do you understand?
All of us.
Do you understand what happened here? But yes, we all consented to this process of history, all of us. And that's on one hand, it's like, what is wrong with me? And on the other hand, it's so empowering because there's a core aspect of us that knows that this has been a holy divine journey to experience the potential for negativity, not just the potential, but then to go into what am I not, the deepest shadow aspects of what's possible, and to come out of that, to know what we are not is the only way to fully know what we are. And in a certain sense, that is what the exile experience, what the cosmic experience has played out essentially. So as far, okay, so to come back around, so as far as, so we are designed to be eternal. And so my theory is that probably as we learn how to heal our bodies, and as we, which includes emotional healing, the energetic stuff that we're carrying in our bodies, there are so many layers to who and what we are within our souls, the lower levels of the soul, the higher levels of the soul, our bodies themselves, that that junk DNA will likely prove to be that which generates eternal life of the body and soul together for us. That's my personal theory.
So
I've never
bodies
seen that written, but yeah.
No, I like that. That resonated. So
Yeah.
These are the bodies. These are the vehicles. Me and you talking right now.
Yes.
This is what will take us into the total ascension. That's another word.
Yes, and the Lubavitcher Rebbe 30 years ago said that nobody has to experience death anymore. We have the ability to unlock that now in our lifetime. And the way that we do that, he said, is through the avoda of bittul, which means total divestment of the ego.
Ooh, that's the work. That's the
which
work.
which is releasing our narratives of being a limited human being. Because the ego self is the me that has super deep limited existential programming and these matrix programs running, that I'm just a limited human being, and I'm subject to I'm subject to nature, and I have this belief about myself and that belief about myself, and it's deep stuff, as we well know. Every time we come past another level of identity to release, it's an existential death. It literally feels like I'm going to die and there's nothing on the other side of this. But then you emerge and you're more you than you've ever been before. Right. So the deeper we go in the divestment of the ego, and that we learn in more and more subtle ways what that means. That's how the Rebbe teaches us. We access and activate this Hayim Nitzchim B'li Hefsek, which means eternal life with no interruption, body and soul together forever.
Wow.
That we
We
can
are,
experience the resurrection of the dead within ourselves without having to actually leave our bodies, God forbid.
wow.
And that's all the
So
Rebbe.
That's all the Rebbe. And
Yep.
the way I was thinking about this is that as we elevate ourselves, as we spiritualize our matter through doing the emotional work, as we become less ego-based, more connected to God, we're going to like meet them. Let's say they densify themselves and we elevate ourselves. And that's how I view resurrection of the dead. Not that they come back to life, but we meet in the middle, in some middle realm.
Yeah. It's a rectified form of the body. So it absolutely could be that we're elevating and they're, and who knows, I had a sense when COVID started that many of them, and the Rebbe actually alluded to this also like 30 years ago. He said they're not as dead as they used to be. They don't go as far as they used to anymore.
Wait a second, because this is what, I don't know if you follow Yishmael Perez. He's a big guru of mine. And he said the same thing. He goes, people that have died 50 to 100 years ago are just in like this holding pen.
Yes. And so the Rebbe deeply alluded to that. The Rebbe also alluded to the fact that nobody passing away anymore was going through reincarnations.
Oh, wow.
So then that would essentially mean that anyone in the past 30 years who passed away, they haven't reincarnated. They've been in the holding phase
Wow.
of the resurrection of the dead, essentially. So and also like when COVID started and people were passing away and people who were passing away, we couldn't say Kaddish for them, which is the elevating prayer of the dead. And there was this deep sense that like they don't really need it because they don't need to be elevated like that because they're just standing behind a wall. They're standing behind a veil. They didn't really go anywhere.
Wow, that's amazing. I feel that. I really resonate with that. I want to switch gears a little bit and I want to go back to talk about religion. And you have the real distinct ability to talk about two different religions because, you talk about this publicly that you've converted to Judaism from Christianity.
Well, I wasn't a very educated Catholic, but I was technically Catholic growing up. Yes.
Where were you born? In New York?
I was actually born in Baltimore. Well, my father was in dental school, and then I moved to Binghamton, New York, when I was like 3, and I grew up in Binghamton and Endicott area.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And so I want to talk about different ways that these religions have kept us imprisoned in that shame, fear, and guilt state, and how we can free ourselves.
Yeah. So it's really interesting because with both religions actually, and lahavdil, I want to say, because Judaism isn't actually a religion, it's a description of reality. Torah is a description of reality. It's not a religion. It's only an ism because other isms exist. But
I always say that. I say Judaism is a way of life. It's not
even just a way of life, and it's not even, forget Judaism. Let's look at Torah and Hasidus, the mystical Torah. It's a description of reality. That's what it is. It's not an ism. It's not a movement. It's not a body of information. It's a friggin' description of reality. So let's just go there. Anyways, so I just have to make that distinction.
And also Hebrew, you say back to the first thing you said, that Hebrew existed before Jews existed, and the world was created with the Hebrew language. So
it's the coding language. It's the coding language for reality. Yes.
Oh, it's the coding language for reality. And I feel like our DNA has to do with this also. I think God coded. I feel like all these topics merge. They do. Anyway, so back to
so my explicit education, when as my soul was deep undercover as this little secular Catholic girl, I was never taught anything fearful. I don't remember anyone ever saying hell or anything like that to me, but the thought forms that dominate in the world, which we would call klipas in Jewish mysticism, which means shells or husks, these entities that infuse reality with lies. My sense of God was judgmental, terrifying. Nobody ever taught me this, but I also had that sense of the mean man sitting on the cloud who was just constantly looking for ways to mess you up and punish you. So that was clearly something that I just downloaded from the prevailing energy in the world,
Yes.
from the powers that be, from the subconscious messaging that came from everywhere. That's, you know, that's what ended up in my subconscious and then my conscious. And that's the best way to know like what they're doing, because they say one thing, they present maybe one thing, but you're like, wait a second, my experience of this is kind of the opposite. And when I went through my whole story and my process, and I've told my story, like I said, publicly many times. There's a whole interview on Chabad.org where I tell my story. And probably there's other videos of it also around, if you just Facebook, Google, whatever it is. When I found Hasidus, my soul was just like, ding, 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 here we are. Like, okay, we found our way home. But then my education within that system also, I'm like, so I'm learning all of these things about my cosmic power and bringing God everywhere and finding God everywhere. But my emotional experience, I ultimately began to unpack again. I feel like a piece of garbage all the time. I've become more judgmental. What's going on here? Because what I'm learning from the texts themselves are like, oh my God, is anybody seeing this? But the people that the people and the places and the energy and the subtext of what I was receiving, I was like, whoa, how did I end up so far away from what the Rebbeim are telling us and teaching us? So then there was a whole other level of unpacking to do again around, separating ourselves from the dark forces that show up in whatever garb they can, that disguise themselves in the holiest of garb, in order to make us, to poison us essentially. So, but that is a gift from God, because that means, hey, guess what? You have to go deeper into yourself now. You have to go into that living wellspring within yourself. You have to encounter me within yourself now. Ooh. Because there's a lot of people lying to you. Even if they're saying the correct words, they're lying to you. And that's the snake.
It's the energy.
That's the snake. The snake manipulated Eve with his words.
Oh, you're so good, Ani.
And that's what the snake does. That's what the snake is doing. And the snake is pretty much dead. It's just in its death throes now. And
I think of a certain president, starts with a B and the last name starts with an O. I don't want to say it on YouTube, but that was the snake energy. Slick. Yeah. Whew. And then,
it's the double speak. It's that the double speak is literally what
tongue. The snake, the tongue itself is split.
It's what the snake did in the Garden of Eden. Just took the truth that God had told Eve not to eat from the tree, and then said, you're not supposed to touch it, and started manipulating her and conning her. He's a narcissist. He's a narcissistic.
Yes.
He's a gaslighter.
Gaslighter.
And we see that that energy is prevalent. And in order to get past that, we actually have to encounter godliness within ourselves and tune into the divine intellect within ourselves, that still small voice that can tell us the truth despite all the noise, no matter how holy that noise might seem. If it's actually making me denser and darker and dead inside, then I have to figure out what's going on. Because for a lot of people, like the practice of Judaism itself, which is supposed to be these incredible God infusing actions and alignments and way of being, have become an experience of the snake, have become full of shame. Ooh. And that's the worst possible thing, because the Torah, especially the mystical Torah, and the practice of the mitzvos, the commandments, which the word mitzvah actually comes from the root savta, which means connection. It's supposed to be a connection between the above and the below, between the body and the soul. And the snake, so of course the snake is going to go after that and make that feel horrible to the body, when it's actually supposed to be an experience of divine connection. So we have to fight to get that back. We have to heal our trauma, our religious trauma around that, and fight for that experience of intimacy back within the Torah, within the mitzvos. And
this is what Judaism is. Judaism is a set of, it's like a
technology. It's spiritual technology. And the non-Jews have their
It's
mitzvahs
a
as
physical
well.
sport. That's what I think of Judaism. It's a very physical sport because
Yes,
we're
yeah,
supposed to connect through the body, through this
yeah.
body. But my question is, are we going to have these mitzvahs on the other side? Are we
Yes,
gonna...
we do still have the mitzvahs, but it's really interesting because the way the Rebbe describes it is that it's because the mitzvahs are actually compared to the limbs of the soul. So it's actually like it's not gonna be this like huge thing where I have to like push myself, and it's like I do a mitzvah the same way I breathe. And it's the same for non-Jews, because the non-Jews also have their 7 general mitzvahs, their streams of general connection to the infinite. And then within those, it branches off into many other ways of being in the world. And so those streams of divine connection, it's a derech yashar, it's a straight path from the highest levels right down here to us in our bodies, of downloading godly energy, God consciousness, and having it integrate with my body. And that's what the Tanya, which I wrote my book on, explains a lot of how in the moment that our body, that we're doing a mitzvah, whether it's with our brain, our heart, our hands, whatever it is, our human emotions, the neurochemical reactions that happen when we're arousing emotions or having thoughts, that we're actually enclosed in that divine energy and divine light, that we're actually bringing that energy into the physical object and the physical limb of our body that is doing that, involved in that mitzvah or intimate connection with the divine. So we make a yichud, a unification between the above, the below, the internal, the external, and manifest God's oneness in that way.
Right. It makes perfect sense. And that's why Judaism, hold on. That's why Judaism doesn't feel like a religion to me. It feels like an instruction booklet on how to connect with the divine and how to embody, how to take something spiritual and materialize it, and then vice versa. You know,
Yes.
we take it down and we bring it back up.
And that's what Chassid is. That's what the mystical Torah came to reveal to us, is it's no more just the how to, it's the what are you doing? And Chassidus, this deepest part of the Torah, is God revealing his most intimate self to us, his most intimate desires to be with us in love, in constant experiential relationship.
Yes, experiential relationship, to be doing stuff together. We're doing stuff with God, lighting candles, baking bread.
And not just that, the ultimate realm that he wants to be known is not just in the mitzvahs, but in every aspect of our life, what we would call like our mundane world. He wants what's called a dira b'tachtonim, a dwelling in the tachtonim, in our mundane human lives. When I'm brushing my teeth, I should be having an experience of God. When I'm riding my horse, or even grooming him or cleaning a stall, I should be with God in that. That's the ultimate, not necessarily just when I'm lighting Shabbos candles or arousing a love of God or meditating or doing an act of kindness for another. Specifically, when I'm not overtly doing a mitzvah or engaged in a ritual, I should be with him. But it's actually by first priming my consciousness through the practice of mitzvahs and the study of Torah that I'm able to unlock that experience in my human life.
That's so good. I just want to sit with that a second.
Yeah.
He just wants to be included in all we're doing.
Yep.
That's so good.
Because we've reached the time of the Geula, this reclamation of God consciousness and unity consciousness. The Rebbe announced to us 30 years ago that, so now, like, God is just revealing himself everywhere. We just have to open our eyes to see. So even if we haven't lived a life of practicing Torah and mitzvahs, even if we haven't primed our bodies yet or our consciousness, we're still plugging in. But then when we'll prime ourselves more through the learning of God's wisdom and his essence within the Torah, specifically the mystical Torah, Hasidus, Kabbalah, and prime our bodies through the practice of mitzvahs, we can tune in way more deeply and more intimately.
Oh, it's so good, Ani. That's so good. The past 2 years have shown me personally that there's no one to turn to. There's no leadership. There's really, in all the religions, I can't just bash our religion. Really,
nowhere.
Yeah. And I think that goes back to what you said, that the real expert is within. Like God is like, there's not going to be external.
Yeah, that's by divine design, because the hierarchy, the concept of hierarchy was a gullus or exile construction, and it was necessary to get us through the exile. But the construct of Geula is a circle consciousness where nobody is closer or further from God, because he's everywhere in everything. So, and Hasidus, and especially the Rebbe's Hasidus, explain so many times that in the Geula consciousness, it is about each one of us manifesting our own spark of Mashiach, of the Messiah, our own deepest sovereignty. This concept of personal sovereignty in Hebrew, in Kabbalah Hasidus, we call it Malchus. That's literally what's been described for thousands of years as what the Geula, the redemptive state is the rise of the personal sovereignty again. And
is that the root chakra? Where is that on the?
Malchus is the feet. Malchus is the feet. Yeah.
It's grounding. It's very grounding.
Yes. Yeah. It's all the way, it's down here, us in this world as we know ourselves in our very physical bodies, but connected to the highest levels of godly experience.
So I have the $1 million question. You ready for it?
Yep.
Is Mashiach a man? Is Mashiach a human, a person, or is it just an energetic bandwidth we're trying to get to, or both?
It's both. It's both, because there is a Mashiach figure, and that Mashiach is responsible for broadcasting that bandwidth into the world and transmitting those teachings and that frequency. But we're not meant to, it's not a person who we're like, oh, let me turn off my brain and become a robot. That's the opposite of what Mashiach wants. Right. Mashiach is here to empower each one of us to become a cosmic super being. Mashiach has no interest in us.
Wait, that was so good. Say that one more time.
Yeah. That Mashiach's job is to empower each one of us to become a cosmic super being.
Oh.
Mashiach has no interest in us. Oh, let me worship it. Mashiach is like, get away from my feet and go be what you're supposed to be.
Be your own Malchus.
Exactly. And that's the job of the Mashiach soul.
And that's where I think,
Mashiach person.
Okay, ready for the next touchy subject?
Yeah.
That's where I think Jesus went off the rails, because the church took him and made him a savior. He did not want that. I don't know how you feel about his life story, but I feel like he might have held a certain potential, but then both sides, one side vilified him, one side deified him, and it was all over. But I think that he did have a potential to bring either the vibration of love back to the planet, of healing. What do you think Jesus was?
So there's also not my thoughts, there's what's recorded.
Okay. But I also want to know, I want to know your thoughts also, Ani.
But my thoughts, if I'm taking data from what's recorded from people who were charged with recording the process of reality, so my thoughts are.
I don't trust. I'm so jaded from the past 2 years. I don't trust the written words as much as I used to. What's been written could have been manipulated, could have been changed.
Some of it could have, but also when those stories have then been passed from Rebbeim of recent years that we know we can trust.
Okay.
So I'm gonna go with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah. I think that regardless of the actual person, what today's Christians have made him into, as far as somebody that they draw inspiration from, and they draw a sense of righteousness, and it's essentially like a medium right now that is serving at least positive purposes, and how that will evolve as the Geula process unfolds, we will see. But right. I think I will say, regardless of the historical person or process, how most people are relating to the concept of him today, I think, is serving a positive purpose.
Oh, that's a great way to look at it.
And the Rambam says that also, all the way back from the Rambam. He says that both he and Muhammad serve a very positive purpose, ultimately, of readying the world for the concept of redemption and Mashiach.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yes.
And eventually the goal is to shed the middleman, right?
Exactly. Yes. That this idea of a middleman, which is called shituf, partnership in Hebrew, right. It's kosher, at least right now, for non-Jews, but ultimately, as they are able to go into, as we all are able to go into full unity consciousness, because our job as Jews, meaning a light among the nations, and the mission that we were chosen for, has been to be able to hold the full unity consciousness until we would get to such a time that all of mankind could receive that in a face-to-face way again. Beautiful. So that was really our mission of staying connected to God in that way throughout, and we had our little mishaps throughout our lifetimes, our Gilgulim, our reincarnations, but we're all here back again, doing the thing and bringing everyone into that unity consciousness. And you see that most people are there already.
Yeah.
Regardless of what they're relating to as a middleman or as, whatever it is, that most people are really all about God, source, with a oneness. That oneness consciousness has permeated everyone, everything, everywhere, whether they know it or not.
Right. That's really true. Was it hard for you at all? Had you bonded at all with Jesus before you converted? Was it hard to give that up?
I hadn't. It was more of a cultural construct of shame. Also, that was deeply embedded in me, that I had to, purge those energetic connections.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk to you a little bit about Erev Rav, what you think that is and how it's manifested in our religion.
Sure.
So
so this ties in actually deeply to the concept of Mashiach and the Geula coming into the world. And so there's a book called You Are What You Hate by Sarah Yehudit Schneider, who is an incredible, brilliant, scholarly, incredible teacher. And she actually, I don't know that she discusses it so immensely at length, but I gleaned so much from this book. She discusses about the Erev Rav. They're essential. So they were the spiritual elite of Egypt who chose to come out of Egypt with the Jews when we were redeemed, not because they had any desire for intimacy with God or to abnegate the ego to a higher reality, but because they saw, the Jews were the winning side spiritually, so it's to our benefit to go out with the winning team. And because they went out for selfish motives, they were never actually able to bond with Moses, with Moshe Rabbeinu. They were never able either to abnegate the ego to his teachings. So they developed this twisted love-hate relationship with him because he redeemed them, but he also was their block to being able to live this like horrendously selfish life. So throughout history, their driving psychological force is actually to sabotage the Moses soul, to sabotage the Mashiach soul and the Mashiach agenda, so to speak. And there's different factions within the Erev Rav. There's different energies. There are some that are more enlightened, so to speak, that can be transformed into full good, that can achieve that ultimate state of abnegation of the ego and stepping into holiness. And there are some that are the total opposite polarity. And again, they will dress up as religious as they need to. They'll say all the right words while doing all the wrong things energetically. Wow. And their unconscious or conscious mission, whoever they are, is actually to sabotage the Moses, who is the shepherd of humanity, the Mashiach soul. And so we see those different factions and iterations showing up in many different ways. I think probably in one of the greatest ways is out in the secular world is the governmental forces and the powers that be, who are presenting this vision of unity and prosperity, and then saying things like you'll own nothing and be happy. Like,
right. That's so Erev Rav energy. That's
totally Erev Rav energy. And we see it elsewhere in, people who purport to be working for the Rebbe and being his representatives and covered up the entire message of Geula and Mashiach. And they have all of these self-righteous, altruistic reasons for doing so. But in the end, it's like you just kind of kept the world stuck in exile when it was totally unnecessary for the past 30 years.
Oh, wow.
So I'm not, that's enough for the understanding. That's enough for the understanding.
It's Chabad has been, isn't the whole okay? Should we not go there?
We're not going to go there.
Okay.
But yes.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say not Chabad as a whole, but we see that all of the institutionalized versions of things tend to be bastions of Erev Rav in our generation.
Yeah, because it's the government funding. It boils down to the government funding at the end.
Yeah, I don't know that Chabad does Chabad get government funding. I don't know about that. I don't think so. But again, we see horrific things that happened behind the scenes.
Yeah,
cover up the Mashiach Geula message of empowerment reality, and it's appalling. and we ain't taking it. We ain't having it.
No more, no more.
And that's why you see that it's, my generation, it's our generation who were like, wait a second, look at what the Rebbe actually said. What the F? What the F, guys? Hello? And we're doing the thing and no one can stop us. Okay?
You ever get discouraged that there's so few of us actually doing the thing?
No, because more and more are doing it all the time.
Okay.
A lot of us are emotionally invested or ego invested, nefesh habahamis, human psyche invested in people who haven't woken up yet. And so that makes us feel like nobody's doing the thing. But more and more people are constantly waking up, whether it's the great awakening out there or within Chabad, within the Jewish world, to the Geula reality, to both. Left and right, souls are being activated. And the most powerful thing that we can do is to be a living example of living Geula and broadcasting that energy. And then people don't have to listen to your arguments and your this and that. They just look at you and their eyes open and they're like, oh my God, I get it now.
Good advice. Be the light, be the
Just
light.
be the light. And then people's eyes open and they don't have to go through the process of hearing and processing. They just see.
Right. And something inside gets turned on.
Yeah.
Right. And their soul is just as smart as our soul.
Exactly. You have to, and that's the thing, actually, the Baal Shem Tov said that we have to have faith in people's souls the same way we have faith in God.
Oh,
we have to have, and when we get sucked into codependency and enmeshment, we're either putting somebody else in the God space for us or trying to put ourselves in the God space for them, and not holding ourselves back and saying, I trust this person's ability to become empowered. I can't do their work for them. I can't think their thoughts for them. I have to pull back and they have to go through their own process. And if I can just stay in my life and be the light and be the truth, then when their eyes, when they're in their process and their eyes are ready to open, or those seeds are finally ready to sprout, I did what I had to do.
Right. And you were saying before we recorded, that we have to just get everybody to this point where their heads won't explode when the light comes in.
Yeah, it does. We don't have to have everybody fully on board. It's just God doesn't want his creations to be destroyed on any level.
Right.
He doesn't
we
want
all get to go. Does everyone get to go to this party?
To Geula?
Yeah.
Everybody gets to Geula, whether it is through Chaim Nitzchim Bli Hefsek, like we said before, abnegating the ego, or through Techiyas HaMesim, meaning having to leave the body and then re-enter. Everybody who has activated some spark of goodness within them, like, again, God doesn't even like when the evil people stay evil. It's painful for him, and it says that when he had to destroy the Egyptians in the sea, that the angels were singing and he told them, like, shut up, this is painful for me. This is painful for me that my creations are suffering in the sea and you're singing, come on.
Right. We don't do that.
Like, God takes no pleasure in any creature choosing evil and destroying itself.
So Ani, is there like a cutoff time where it's like we go from Gullus to Geula, from the 3D to the 5D? That's
we're the ones who drive the process. I always say Geula doesn't happen to us, it happens through us.
Right.
So each one of us who are individually choosing to upgrade our consciousness, to plug in, to take those quantum leaps out of every way we've defined ourselves ever before, we drive that process forward. And we take, as again, God wants every single, he is dragging everything out to the last second so that every single possible person who even has the slightest connection to the ability to be redeemed can be redeemed. He doesn't,
Grace period.
He doesn't want light, he wants life. He does not want the evil to, he wants the evil to choose good and convert themselves to the side of good. He doesn't want them to have to be destroyed.
Right.
Because they're his creations too. That's devastating.
So when is that going to be done? Like, when is that?
That depends on us. That depends on each of us continuing, because Geula is all about us down here. It cannot be imposed on us from behind the scenes, from the spiritual world. It's us generating it from within by tapping into our light and our power. And we're coming into Hanukkah tonight, where it's all about generating that essential light and flame that will never go out. That oil, which is the essence of the soul that permeates all things. When we can set that ablaze and make that essence what guides every revealed aspect of our life, That's being in a geula state. And the Rebbe said that as each one of us puts ourselves and our life into a state of personal redemption. And that's why I always say, what's your geula vision for your life? The details of your life in a redeemed state. What kind of house are you living in? How do you spend your time? What are your relationships like? Start doing that now. Do you need to apologize to someone?
Live in the 5D. Live in the 5D right now.
You need to apologize to someone. Do you need to cut someone off until they can be healthy for you? Do you need to take up horseback riding again after a 13-year break? Speaking for myself. Like, what do you need? What do you need to do? What's your geula vision? What's the deepest, most aligned vision of your heart for your life? Start living that. And that's your personal redemption. And the Rebbe says that's what triggers these mass scale revelations of the redemption out in the world. And we see before COVID is clearly a massive acceleration of the redemption process because it's forcing the evil out of the woodwork.
Yes.
It's forced everything to expose itself. The power of evil, its greatest power is as the snake to disguise itself as good. But when it's being forced to reveal itself for what it is. It can't hide anymore. As the life force has been extracted from it and the people on the side of good, because so many of us equated good with being meek and weak, as we've been ready to learn how to say not just no to evil, but no, go fuck yourself. We have to be able to say that. Okay. Not just no, but no, go fuck yourself. We're taking the life force. Yeah. We're taking the life force back.
Yeah.
And we have to be ready to be powerful.
Yes.
We got to be powerful. And so, and to be in the world and not think we have to hide. And that's what being meek is. That's the image of goodness they want us to have. So we'll just stay slaves forever. That's not what it means. That ain't what it means. And it's just not what it means. And we see that, even from Jewish history, from these fiery women who stood up, especially at the time of Hanukkah, we see that it was the women who weren't afraid to stand up and do their thing, their fiery thing, who initiated the miracles and the salvations. And so we see that again now. The Rebbe always said it's the righteous women of the generation who are leading the way into redemption.
Oof. Why do you think that is? Why do you think that is?
So because the idea is actually that one of the biggest ideas of redemption is actually that it's specifically the feminine that fell and became covered up and trampled on throughout history. And it's actually the rise of the feminine dimension of reality back to the crown of creation that is actually kind of the ikar or the core of geula, of the redemption.
I just watched a Megan Rose video. I don't know if you know who that is, but she said the same exact thing that you just said.
And again, that's because everything is clarified. Anyone who's tuning in from the receiver of their soul can see this about reality.
Yes.
And the Torah is, again, it's a description of reality. So if you're tuning in from your soul receiver, you're just going to see reality. Even if you've never learned Hasidus, even if you don't know any of this, you're just tuning into reality.
I love that.
But then we bring in the context of Torah and mitzvahs and Hasidus and that terminology, and you become superpowered in the world. Because you're connecting fully with the source and holiness.
Do you think that we have to acknowledge and observe the evil that's been going on, like specifically underground? And I'm talking about, do we have to look at that stuff to pass through that tunnel of truth, as I call it, and like observe it? And then I liked what you had said, that Hashem said, I will remove the spirit of evil.
Yeah.
Like he uses, like, we don't have to, he's going to do that. We just have to, what's on us to do? Just acknowledge it, observe it.
Yes. And also in our own Dalet Amos, in our own microcosm of our lives, to say no to where any manifestations of that evil, any manifestations of people in our lives, if we have experienced, we've been fortunate enough to experience the gift of narcissistic abuse. Cut that shit out. Yeah. To say anybody, people pleasing, when you're bowing down to other people, the darkness in them. Right. No. Any place in our Dalet Amos, in our microcosm, that we can cut that energy out, we affect that in the macrocosm as well.
Yeah, it's so
what I wanted to say before about the darkness coming out in COVID is that for the few years before that, there had been a massive resurgence in the teachings of the Rebbe about the fact that the Geula is actually here. People starting to unpack that and do that deep Geula work. And I truly think that we triggered that next phase of the darkness being driven out. As painful and horrific as it's been for so many people, it was an acceleration. It is an acceleration of the redemption process. And
Because
I think
daylight kills. It's coming
was
out. The
triggered.
snake is
Yeah.
coming. Yes. Yep.
And I believe that was triggered by the deep cosmic level work that so many of us started doing around these teachings
To understand,
that
Ani, that
reality.
the psychological work is the spiritual work.
Yes, because the psyche is the soul. There's not a difference between.
There's not a difference.
No. Yes.
Till I made that
again,
connection myself to realize when you go.
Exactly. And we may be
read
using
books.
different words to describe it, but it's the same thing. It's just
Right.
semantic game at this point. It's all one, and it's just a game of semantics.
Oh, Anna, you're so brilliant.
Thank you for those kind semantics.
You're welcome. You're welcome. I have so much respect for you. I have so much admiration for the journey that you've been on, that you're such a bright light. I feel your energy so strongly.
Well, thank you so much.
And I appreciate you heeding the call of your powerful soul and doing this work and showing us in brilliant language. That's really your gift.
That's what my name actually means. Our names actually reveal a lot about, there's a lot of hidden secrets in them. And so my Hebrew name, Hannah Devora, can be translated as her words are beautiful.
Oh.
And I didn't do that on purpose when I named myself. Just turned out to be part of my
prophecy. You had that moment of prophecy.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go back. I started listening to a bunch of videos from 2 years ago. I'm like going back to all your stuff because I didn't understand what the hell you were talking about 2 years ago. And that's a marker for me, how I've grown in the past 2 years, that I still have to play you on like less speed. Like most videos I watch, I play it on like 1.5 speed. I play your videos like a less speed. It
just flows.
Because there's so much information. Every sentence you say has so much information in it. So really, God bless your soul for coming down, doing this work in this time. Hopefully we can have more conversations in the future.
Oh yeah.
I'm going to link up, send me some links and I'm going to put all your stuff in the description box.
Sure.
I would go back and listen to Ani's stuff from 2 years ago. She saw this thing coming way before even COVID hit. And her gift is to really bring in the Hebrew terminology to match the Great Awakening terminology. It's all there, so we can understand it, make a one big picture for all of humanity.
That's what it is, yeah. So all come together with a common tongue, a common language, and serve God as one being.
Right, the common tongue. So unlike the snake, which is split, it's the
common tongue where we can all communicate in the language of the heart and serve God together.
Amen. And is there any other like final thoughts you want to close out this conversation with?
That each one of us is ready, no matter how low we think we are or how broken we think we are. We're ready for the redemption. We are ready to live redeemed. And you have to believe in yourself. And you have to believe in yourself because you're here now for a reason. You are protected, you are guided, you are loved. And step into that, and we can do this together in a way of peace and joy and pleasure.
Oh, that sounds so good. That's the embodiment piece, right? That's what girls know how to do that.
Yeah, exactly.
I heard you say, I just want to cover that one topic and then we'll really go. Okay. How as women we could embody Geula. What practical advice do you have for the women out there?
100%. It's really the three main frequencies of the redemption are joy, pleasure, and tranquility. So
joy, pleasure, tranquility.
Yeah, simcha, oineg, and menucha in Hebrew. Wow. Or tainug. It's the same thing. So when you are faced with any choice in your life, whether it's what to have for breakfast or how to handle a crisis, you go deep, and you might need to consult with wise friends or mentors or spiritual, a spiritual mentor, whatever it is. What is the choice that will bring me the most of those frequencies? And feel and what will produce the most joy, pleasure, and tranquility in my body and my soul. And that is literally how we start to embody the Geula state.
Right, because we're just trying to match the Yom Shekulo Shabbos. You know what I'm saying? The day, the Sabbath. We're going into a time period of the whole week long will be the
Shabbos, which is because the core of Shabbos is tainug, is pleasure.
Ugh.
And so that's why Geula is called Shabbos, because it's about God's deepest pleasure manifesting through the world, in the world.
Thank you so much for this
Yes.
conversation.
Thank you. Happy
Thank you.
Hanukkah.
Happy Hanukkah, everybody. Take care, Ani.
Bye.
Bye.